Hi, I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I'm going to be talking about the fatal flaw of traditional talk therapy. This is including cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and more. I love those therapies. I am a fan of them, and I do not rely on them alone for these reasons that I'm going to lay out for you today. I'm really excited about this because I'm going to take you to the four layers of transformation and awareness that I work from, and I'm going to show you how to get to those deeper levels, which is where you really create the deep transformation, and why talk therapy is a very slow way to get um, to the deepest levels of transformation. Okay, and you're going to understand that. And guess what, if you've spent a lot of time in talk therapies, that's good, because you have really stored a lot of information right where you want it, and when you learn how to do the next stuff, you really kick that into high gear, and all that stuff becomes available, and you can actually really sink it into your subconscious level, past your survival level, and out. This comes to you very, very easily and well, and you really can reprogram and transform your autopilot settings, and so that you are autopiloting into the direction you want to go, into success, instead of having to stay on the top layers and just willpower your way through. And so this makes the biggest difference. This is how you eliminate symptoms and not just cope with them or manage symptoms for the rest of your life. And that's what you want, because any time you spend managing and coping with symptoms is time that you are not spending living your dreams, loving your children, um, enjoying who you are right now. Right. And that's why this has got to go deeper than just the top couple layers. And I'm going to have a drink of my little water here. I should have got this beforehand, but Okay, got my notes here. Okay, let's see. Um, Let me start with this. This is a little nugget I share with my clients, and so I want to share this with you as well, because it's a really powerful way of looking at things. Awareness is 50% of the work. If you can become aware of something, 50% of the work is already done, and your brain already has that problem that you've just become aware of on the path to elimination. Right? So it's already on its way out. And that's really good news, because there are some things you're like, oh my gosh, like, how am I ever going to do this? But once you become aware of it, sometimes that's painful, sometimes that's disappointing, sometimes that's shocking, and sometimes it's flabbergasting, the things that you become aware of. But once you can feel it, see it, know it, hear it, um, with clarity and awareness, it is in the zone of your inner healer, and it will work on it day and night, night and day. Now, there is 50% more of the work, and that determines, and how quickly you do the rest of the work is how quickly you get to sink this into the subconscious level. Right. And so awareness is huge. Awareness is a big part of this, and it's just 50%. And I would rather even do it. um, I'll get to that later. um, so that's a really big piece to this puzzle, and I want you to understand that, so that when we keep adding on to that concept, you're ready to wrap it in there. Right. Okay, so once you become aware of something, that's 50%. Okay, and in talk therapy, that's a lot of what's going on. A lot of these strategies are to get you aware of your limited beliefs, how your, let me, I'm so excited about this talk. Okay, let me stay in order. Let me give you another paradigm to work from, so that way I can bounce back and forth and be free. Okay, there are four levels that I want to talk about right now. Are the behavioral layer. This is your actions. This is what you are doing. This is what everyone's seeing on the outside. This is your outside world, how you're interacting with your life, your children, your job. This is who is showing up. It's your behavioral level. Right. Then you've got lower than that. I kind of would like it to be like this, right? Because we're going deeper, but stay with me here. Then you've got the cognitive level, and the cognitive level is thoughts. right? This is what you're thinking. A lot of our cognitions, our thoughts that we're thinking all the time, some of them we're aware of, some of them we aren't. And some of them are loud, some of them are quiet, some of them are hot, some of them are cold, right? A lot of thoughts going on all the time. We are thinking machines, you know? Um, and then you've got the next layer, which is the survival layer. And this is your defense mechanisms and your survival. This is and your survival mechanisms, right? These are your triggers and your reactions. The things that make you fearful, the things that make you feel threatened, the things that activate your survival system, your defense mechanisms, and yeah, and then the reactions to those, right? So the triggers, the things that set it off, and then how you react in that survival mode, right? And that's fight, flight, freeze, or faint. And there are so many varieties of that that I would actually love to see a poster of that. Maybe I'll make one. Who knows? Um, that one would be exhaustive because every human has a way of creating their own strategies of fight, right? Some people use food to fight, right? Some people use words to fight. Some people use drugs to fight. Some people use withdrawal to fight, right? Some people use withdrawal to hide, right? That would be in the flee category, but it's still, anyway, it's very interesting. A whole nother uh, video for that. Anyway, and then the last layer is subconscious, the subconscious layer, and this is your subconscious programming. This is your deepest levels of your beliefs, your this is the layer that your heart beating is at. Like, you don't have to think about your heart beating; it's just going to, right? Because that's the programming. You've got your lungs. You don't have to think about that. It's just your lungs are going to do what they do, right? And we all have subconscious programs for pretty much everything. And if you don't, you get there and you're like, I don't know what to do here. And now you have to move it up to the conscious level, and then you have to be in different places for that stuff, and that's okay, because then you will build something, and then it will sink down to the subconscious level again. It will wire that in, and then there you got a new program, right? And this is happening all the time. It's happening very quickly all the time for little children, right? They don't have an automatic thing for most of life, right? They have their natural instincts, and then they build from there. So you've got these 4 levels, right? And in these 4 levels, this is you can build awareness around each 4 of these levels. You can build awareness about your behaviors. You can build awareness about your thoughts. You can build awareness about your survival and defense reactions and triggers. You can build awareness around your subconscious programming, right? And that's all awesome. And it's only 50% of the work, right? And in talk strategies, that is what you're doing. You are becoming aware. And the more awareness you have, the more you can start to make different choices at some levels. At the behavioral level, you get to make choices there. At the cognitive level, you get to make choices there. At the survival level, you don't get choices there. And at the subconscious level, you don't really get choices there either until the programming is done. But even then, you're not a pilot, right? And so those are places where, even though you can build awareness in the survival level and the subconscious level, you can build awareness around them, but you don't get to have a choice about them. And that's why people get so frustrated with themselves, is because I know what I'm doing, I can't make it stop. Right? And that's the problem. That's the fatal flaw of talk therapy. That's why you're only getting so far into your recovery journey in talk therapy. And that's why you will keep walking around. You'll become more aware of how crappy your survival system and your subconscious brain are programmed and reactive, but you won't have the power to make any changes in them. And that's really, when I came face to face with that, I had a whole therapy life crisis. I remember I was working in substance abuse, and I was a therapist for substance users who were severely addicted. And I just realized that we're not going anywhere. And I was so disillusioned that I quit. I was like, I hate this. I hate this entire field. I'm never doing this again. And I was livid. And I said, I will never do therapy again. And that was it. Didn't even look back. And And I had no intentions of ever becoming a therapist because, you're going to talk about the problem for the next 5 years, and then they're going to still struggle with it, and they're going to, I did not like the speed of change. I did not like the depth of change. It seemed like suffering upon suffering, and I wanted no part of it. And you know that I came back because I actually found interventions that do work quickly. I had no idea you could even do this, right? Totally. And I was a practicing therapist and had no idea that you could work so quickly and powerfully with the two deeper layers, the survival center and the subconscious. I had no idea. I heard about hypnotherapy, but it has never really like rung my bell. So I was not open to that. And maybe, when I was at the place where I began to, I actually was never open to anything else. I had really closed my mind off to the possibility of healing until I was really struggling, and somebody shoved it in my face and said, "Here, try this intervention. It'll change your life." And I'm like, whatever. But I did, and it did. And so then I was like, well, holy crap, what else is out there? um, so that's really the fatal flaw of therapy. It's of traditional talk therapy, and that's why people go there and they're getting this connection, they're getting insight, they're getting answers for the first time, and they're starting to see themselves, and they're starting to feel empowered. And guess what? You are empowered to make changes at the top two layers, and then you've still got 50% of the work to do. And if you don't have strategies to hack, that sounds so violent. If you don't have strategies to work with the survival center, then you just stay stuck there, and you got to use the strategies that are roundabout ways that takes years to sink in. And I know this. I did a lot of work before I found these interventions, and I was getting some results. But now I specialize in helping people eliminate symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress in 2 to 6 months instead of 2 to 6 years, right? Which would have been the path I was on. And I don't even know, because I never went back to the old ways of doing things, I don't even know if you can create the same results I get people in 2 to 6 months in 2 to 6 years. I don't even know if you use talk strategies, traditional talk strategies. I don't even know. I have no experience with that. But I do know that if you take a traditional route with people that are using the right types of strategies that will help you work through the bottom two layers, you can get through that in 2 to 6 years, right? Or you can do something like what I do with people and really multiply those daily and weekly, and really get this get a lot resolved, if not all of it resolved, in 2 to 6 months. And because right now you have ways to work with the survival center. Okay. That's really as far as I got in my talk, but in my notes, and I just did it all. But I want to share some more, because I really feel like there's some more information I can give you to point you in the right direction. But one of the things that I do want to say is that the ultimate goal is not awareness. The ultimate goal is changing underlying dysfunctional patterns. Right? If you have an underlying dysfunctional pattern of having panic attacks, or throwing up a defense mechanism that's interrupting your levels of intimacy with your partner, or defense mechanisms that are blocking you from your business success, or these patterns that are going on, that's where you want to go. You don't want to just be aware of them. That's half of the victory. And you need to know that that's half the victory, because when that's all you get, you need to know, okay, now I need to do part 2, right? And part 2 is where you get the change. And so many of us are stopping at awareness, like, oh yes, I know now. Yes. And that's not enough. You're halfway there. And yes, it is on the conveyor belt out, but you either get to wait for the natural process, which can take a long time to sink down into your survival and your subconscious level, or you can learn the skills and strategies to sink it down quickly. quickly. For instance, I have a client who had her survival strategy, her survival reaction when was one of them was really tightness around her neck and her jaw, and when she would be unconsciously aware of her stressors, that's where she would feel the pain, the somatic distress, right? And we did a session, and we went to the origin of this, and she did a beautiful job. And we did the work on the survival strategy and the subconscious stuff, which I don't even remember what there was so much. There was so much in that one issue but once we did that, all of a sudden, these two layers start impacting and freeing up these two levels. They start freeing up all your positive thoughts, all of who you are, all the things that you've learned, and it starts weaving in to your behavioral level. And it's like once you get down to these levels come up, they make change there, they make change there, and boof, like you start to see behavioral changes, everything. I just talked with her, and she said that she no longer has that pain in her jaw. She was like biting through guards at night, and her neck is loosened up. And that was one of the results of the session we worked on. And now it's held and maintained because that survival communication that's going off in her body and in her mind is not there anymore, because we did this work at the survival and the in the subconscious level. But what I want to say is that so much of our therapy work is based on and focused on our cognitive awareness. And I think that this can really hold us back. And I think it's a defense strategy. I think it's a defense strategy because we feel like we need to be in control of the process. We need to understand in order to do it. And I get that, been there, and I'm curious, like I want to know what's happening. But I also know that sometimes if you work with the survival strategy, the survival center layer, if you work at the survival layer and you get the survival reactions out of the body, out of the mind, out of the energy patterns, out of the physical patterns, if you clear that, all of a sudden your awareness turns on, your behavioral changes and whatnot. Like I would rather go straight for the survival center and the subconscious than I would with the cognitive. Like that's seriously my preference, because it ultimately, the awareness is going to come on one way or the other. But what we don't know if it's going to come on is the change at the survival center and the subconscious, right? And sometimes the cognitive layer is there's so much blindness there. There's so many blocks, right? Your defense system will block you from becoming aware of so many things. And so if you wait for your thinking center to have access to what it needs to bring something into awareness, you're on its time, right? And you gotta wait and years can go by. This drives me nuts. I just want you to know this drives me nuts. I'm just total transparency. This drives me nuts. Okay, back to the topic and less about me for the moment. But you're waiting, right? And you have to wait for all the pieces to come together. And this literally can take years to find the awareness of why my stomach is aching every time I think about Y or X or that thing, for those of you who hate math and are triggered by it. If we're waiting for that to come on, we're wasting valuable time. If we just take care of what's going on in your stomach, boom, block cleared, and now the cognitive awareness is coming. And my clients are like, oh, this is because of this, and this is when it happened. And now the awareness wheels are turning, right? So, but when you're working through the traditional talk therapy route, everything is contingent upon your cognitive understanding, right? And that process is much slower than your subconscious or your survival center. Your survival center is going off. If you've got symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, your survival center is going off all the time, right? And if you just follow it around and help it shift out of that, all of a sudden, because it'll just, wherever it's activating, that's where the problem is, right? And if you can shift it out of that, you can shift it out, then your inner healer gets that thing that it was working on, and it just gets it through the healing pathways. And that means through your awareness centers, through all this stuff. And so, and then you kind of like turn it off, the survival strategy off, or the alarm, right? That anxious feeling, or that the self-doubt starts. And if you turn that off, all of a sudden your thinking center gets to turn back on, and it's like, oh, thank you for finding that for me. I've been looking for that. Thank you. And process done, right? Instead of like, who can think during this time? Because your survival center shuts your thinking center down and off. Not entirely, but sometimes it does. When it puts you to sleep, that's a symptom of your survival. That's a survival strategy. You're done. Go to sleep. Right. And so, but, so I really, your body is telling you everything you need to know. Your survival center is telling you everything you need to know right now. And then when you're done with that, then there's other strategies to go. Now you need to go pull things into your awareness. And that is really a great time for CBT and DBT. And if you've already been doing those, great, that stuff will come right online for you as you do the brain work, right? And that's really where I stay, because I find that people's cognitive areas don't need a lot of work. And as a matter of fact, the behavioral levels really don't need a lot of work. And that is one of the reasons why I have clients that just lose a ton of weight, because we work at such a deep level that everything on the outside starts to change. Like, right? If you start having panic and you need to use food to cover the panic, which you got to do something to get out of panic. You cannot live in a panic state. And many people are living in a panic state for hours and hours every single day. And that's not fair, right? And so their brain says, we got to get out of this, we got to get out of this. And it's like, let me go reach for that food, or that drug, or that conversation, or that, distraction, or that, game I'm playing on my video, or let me just scroll on Facebook. Got to keep the brain busy so it doesn't do that panic thing, right? And so we're looking for coping strategies that aren't necessarily beneficial to us, because we need to get out of suffering. And so, but when we we will do some really amazing things to get out of suffering. We will pick fights with people, because a good fight will just make things better. Because you have to move that emotion. That's called displacing aggression. You've got some stuff boiling here and you need to get it out. So you go and you just start a fight with your husband, and that feels better. That's really, feels better now, because it really clears out the emotional buildup, but it doesn't do anything to alter the underlying dysfunctional pattern. And ultimately, that's what you need to get rid of, right? And you, like I said, you don't want to just be aware of the underlying dysfunctional pattern. You want to clear it. You want to be done with it. You want to transform it. And you can. That's the cool part. Okay, so that's really what I really want you to understand. If you've been doing talk therapy, you have not failed. You have built. And you need to do the rest of the work. And if you have done talk therapy, I talk to people a ton about this, and they're just like, I didn't get results. Yeah, I know. But don't give up, finish, because it's right there to do. You can absolutely do the rest of it. And if there's people that are out there that's like, I'm not seeing a therapist ever, fine, good. You don't have to. You can learn how to do this yourself and still get phenomenal results. Many, many people will have to heal that way. There are many people that will never feel safe enough to go to see a therapist and go to get help with this. I get you. I was you. I would never have gone. Never. And my family members drive me nuts because they're the same way. And I'm like, we could be done with this, but it turns out they'll do the work. And so they're doing the work. And, but I come from those people. And so I know that you're out there, and I know that if you don't want to get help, like you don't want to do therapy, or you don't want to sit here and talk about this, great. Because you don't need to. You can learn how to work with your survival center in such a way to get the results you need, and then all of a sudden everything comes up. That's when, after you've got the survival center done, that's when Google comes in handy, man. Not before. You cannot learn enough to change your emotional wellness. You cannot learn enough, because that's a function of the cognitive. You're addressing the cognitive area. And you get to do, and it's fun to work with that because this part of your brain will absorb all kinds of information. It will absorb all kinds of new ideas and new strategies, and it'll just roll around with them because it needs to do something to keep busy, right? And because it's a busy body. And it needs to be because it needs to be able to do the work we're calling it to do. But if you've got anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, it's interrupted. And so it still needs to move. And so that's why you find yourself very busy. That's why you find yourself less productive. That's why you find yourself having to do things you don't really want to be doing. That's it. So once you help this part be able to do its work, you're really rocking there. But there was something I was going to say about that I lost into the ether. It might come back. Yeah. So, yes. So what I was saying is that, there are different routes for healing for every single person. And I do believe that these are skills every single person should have in their awareness, because it's your brain. It's your survival system. It's your subconscious mind. Like, if it can be easily worked with, which I'm telling you it can. I teach this to 13-year-olds. I teach this to 15-year-olds. I teach this to 17-year-olds. I teach this to 65-year-olds. I teach this to people with cognitive impairments. I teach this to people with learning disabilities, right? Because it's easy. Right. And it's kind of like once you start to do this, it's like it hasn't been under our noses, but we're just learning these things now and we're integrating them and we're getting great results. Right. And so I'm telling you this because I want you to keep going. Go get it. You started this journey, finish this journey. This journey is one to finish. It is not one to keep hanging on to or be treading on the meal for the rest of your life, the bike or the hamster wheel. That's where I was going for. You're not supposed to stay in the mental health, anxiety, depression, and trauma disorder land for all of your life. You've got other adventures to go on. And you've got people who love you. You have love to be had. You have a life to live. And every minute you spend struggling and dragging around symptoms is just stuff that's tainted, right? It's just stuff you just can't absorb all the joy and all the fun that could be there, right? So I want that for you. I want you to know that's available. I talk to people all the time that are like, I don't know if it will work for me, and I'm telling you, yes. And guess what? See if it will work for you, or sit there and suffer and be attacked by your own brain, right? Because I know I've been there. But I want you to put this into your little wheelhouse, in the stew that you're cooking, your recovery stew, and put it in there and see what happens. If this is something that you are singing my song, Rachel, these are the exact steps I've been thinking about taking, and you want to talk with me about them, I invite you to go ahead and book a breakthrough call with me, and I will spend an hour with you to figure out where you're stuck, where you want to go, and help you create a plan to get there. And if I can help you with that, I will absolutely let you know. And if I think there's something that would be better for you, then I will outline that as well. And so you can do that by grabbing a spot on my calendar, by going to rachelmccloud.com/call. I'll leave that in the notes here. And I'll call you at the time that you choose. So having said all of that, I'm going to put this in here. And while I'm doing that, if you have any comments, you have any questions, you have any thoughts, I want you to go ahead and put that down now. And if you don't, that's okay too. We will get off. But if you're watching the replay of this, post your notes. Because I will watch this, it notifies me, and I will get to respond. And sometimes I just do a live about your question because I'm like, oh, that's a great question. Lots of people want to know about this. And sometimes I'll just respond back, or both, right? So, okay, let me put this in here. And I'm not seeing any comments yet, so. Okay. I'm not seeing any comments. So wonderful hanging out with you guys. I will see you around and talk with you soon.